Stoicism teaches us that we can't control others, but we can control how we react. This ancient philosophy helps us stay calm, grounded, and focused on our actions, not external negativity. By embracing Stoicism, we learn to approach disrespect with clarity, detachment, and wisdom, rather than being swayed by emotions. It's a powerful tool for maintaining peace in a chaotic world. In this article, we'll explore 8 practical Stoic strategies to handle disrespect, from emotional detachment to setting clear boundaries, all aimed at protecting your inner peace. Emotional detachment. Letting go of the need for validation in the last point, we talked about the Stoic principle of controlling our reactions. But what about those situations where disrespect feels personal, where we can't help but feel hurt or invalidated? This is where emotional detachment comes into play. Imagine you've just poured your heart into a project, invested time and effort, and you're met with a dismissive remark. The sting of that rejection is immediate and sharp, isn't it? Your instinct might be to defend yourself or retaliate. But what if, instead, you chose to detach yourself from the emotional reaction? This is the core of emotional detachment. Recognizing that while you cannot control what others say or do, you can control how you allow their words or actions to impact you. Let's take the example of a workplace scenario. You've worked hard for months on a proposal, and a colleague, without a second thought, belittles your ideas in front of others. It feels disrespectful, and your first instinct might be to fight back or seek validation. However, the Stoic approach teaches us that external validation doesn't define our worth. In this moment, we must remind ourselves that others' opinions are often reflections of their own insecurities or biases, not a measure of our value. By practicing emotional detachment, you acknowledge the disrespect, but you don't allow it to influence your sense of self. This is not about suppressing your feelings, but rather about choosing not to let them control your actions. Instead of reacting impulsively, take a deep breath, step back, and evaluate the situation from a place of objectivity. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I handle it with dignity and calm? Here's where the story of Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, can provide valuable insight. Despite being one of the most powerful men in the world, Marcus faced criticism and even betrayal. In his meditations, he repeatedly reminded himself to detach from negative emotions. He focused on his duties and inner growth, not the opinions of others. When he faced disrespect, he responded not with anger, but with calm reflection and wisdom. He didn't take personal offense to every criticism, understanding that people are often motivated by their own frustrations, not a genuine assessment of his worth. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you allow people to walk all over you. It means you recognize that their disrespect is a reflection of their own issues, not a reflection of who you are. It empowers you to respond with dignity, to engage only when necessary, and to protect your emotional energy. This practice allows you to maintain peace, even in the face of adversity. So, the next time someone disrespects you, take a step back, breathe, and detach from the emotional impulse to retaliate. By doing so, you'll begin to build resilience, not only against others' actions but also against the chaos of the world around you. Emotional detachment allows you to preserve your peace and move forward with purpose, free from the need for validation. Responding with empathy, not retaliation. Building on the idea of emotional detachment, another powerful tool in dealing with disrespect is to respond with empathy, rather than retaliation. When we are disrespected, it's easy to slip into the trap of reacting with anger or defensive behavior. But what if we could shift our mindset and respond with understanding instead? Imagine a scenario where someone makes a snide remark about you in a group setting. The usual reaction might be to snap back, to defend your character, or to make a sarcastic remark of your own. However, this will only escalate the situation and leave you feeling drained. Instead, consider responding with empathy. Instead of focusing on the disrespect, ask yourself, what might this person be going through that caused them to behave this way? Responding with empathy doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior or letting others get away with it. It means recognizing that everyone carries their own burdens, and sometimes their words and actions are more about their inner struggles than about you. By responding with empathy, you are able to disarm the negativity and create space for understanding. This isn't just about showing kindness to others. It's about protecting your own peace and not allowing anger to dominate your emotional state. Let me share a story to illustrate this. A woman named Sarah had been working in a fast-paced corporate environment for years, and her boss, always stressed and overworked, would often lash out at her for no apparent reason. One day, he sharply criticized her during a meeting in front of her colleagues. Most people would have snapped back or felt humiliated, but Sarah chose a different approach. Instead of responding with anger, she paused for a moment and asked, "Is everything okay? You seem stressed. How can I help?" Her response threw him off, and for the first time, he opened up about the pressures he was facing at work and at home. That simple, empathetic response created a shift in their relationship, and over time, their interactions became more respectful. Sarah didn't tolerate the mistreatment, but she chose not to retaliate with more hostility. Instead, she created an opportunity for connection, which ultimately led to a more harmonious working environment. This story is a powerful example of how responding with empathy can not only de-escalate conflict but also foster understanding. It's a technique rooted in Stoicism, the ability to control our reactions to external circumstances. The Stoics teach that we should focus on the things we can control, our actions and our attitudes. Empathy is an intentional action that we can choose in the face of disrespect. When we choose empathy, we are no longer at the mercy of others' words or actions. Instead, we regain control over our emotional state. We choose peace over conflict, understanding over judgment. Empathy doesn't mean you allow people to disrespect you. It means that you respond from a place of wisdom, seeing beyond the surface and understanding that others may be acting out of pain, stress, or frustration. In conclusion, responding with empathy is a powerful way to handle disrespect. It allows you to maintain your integrity and calm, while also fostering a more understanding and peaceful environment. The next time you encounter someone who disrespects you, try to respond with empathy instead of retaliation. Not only will you protect your own peace, but you might also help to transform the situation into a more positive interaction. Setting boundaries with grace and strength. Building on the idea of responding with empathy, it's also essential to set clear boundaries with people who don't respect you. Empathy helps you understand why someone might behave a certain way, but boundaries ensure that their disrespect doesn't affect your mental well-being. Setting boundaries is not about being harsh or unkind. It's about preserving your peace and showing others how you expect to be treated. One of the most challenging aspects of dealing with disrespect is knowing when and how to assert yourself. We often fear that if we stand up for ourselves, we'll be seen as rude or confrontational. But in reality, setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, and it teaches others how to respect you. It's a delicate balance, but with the right approach, you can do this gracefully without burning bridges. Consider the story of Emma, a mother of two, who worked as a manager at a fast-paced marketing firm. Emma was always the go-to person when something went wrong. Her team would often turn to her for answers, sometimes even expecting her to work extra hours without consideration. At first, Emma tried to accommodate everyone, taking on more and more responsibilities without saying no. But over time, the constant pressure started to take a toll on her health and happiness. She found herself irritable, overwhelmed, and resentful. One day, Emma realized that if she didn't set clear boundaries, she would continue to burn out. So, she decided to take a stand. She had a candid conversation with her team, explaining that while she was committed to their success, she needed to protect her personal time and well-being. She made it clear that while she would always support them, she wouldn't be available for every minor issue outside of work hours. At first, Emma's team was surprised, but they quickly respected her decision. The key to her success was that she set these boundaries with kindness, not hostility. She communicated her limits calmly and firmly, without guilt. The result? She found more balance in her life, and her relationships with her team members improved. They respected her more because she demonstrated that she valued herself enough to protect her time. This story highlights a powerful truth. When you allow others to cross your boundaries, you end up losing respect, not just from them, but for yourself as well. Boundaries help us communicate our values, and they show others how to treat us. If we never set limits, we teach people that it's okay to disrespect us, that our needs are secondary. But when we assert ourselves with clarity and confidence, we show that we are worthy of respect. Setting boundaries is not about controlling others, but about taking responsibility for our own emotional well-being. It's a practice that involves self-awareness and understanding what you will and won't tolerate. Whether it's setting limits with a friend who constantly cancels plans or a colleague who consistently interrupts you, boundaries empower you to protect your peace without guilt. In conclusion, Setting boundaries with grace and strength is crucial when dealing with people who don't respect you. It's a way of showing others that while you are compassionate and empathetic, you will not tolerate being mistreated. By communicating your boundaries with clarity and kindness, you not only protect yourself but also model healthy behavior for others. When you set boundaries, you don't just keep negativity out. You create space for positivity, respect, and deeper, more meaningful relationships. Choose your response, not their behavior. Building on the idea of setting boundaries with grace, the next powerful step in handling people who don't respect you is learning to control your own reactions. People who disrespect us often provoke emotional responses, leading us to react in ways we might later regret. However, one of the core principles of Stoicism is understanding that while we can't always control others' actions, we can always control our responses. The ability to choose our responses, regardless of the situation, is one of the most liberating practices we can adopt. It empowers us to remain grounded, even when others try to push our buttons or diminish our worth. Imagine the difference it makes to remain calm and collected when faced with disrespect instead of reacting impulsively. Take the story of Tom, a successful entrepreneur who once found himself constantly clashing with a colleague, John, at work. John, a talented but arrogant individual, often undermined Tom's ideas in meetings. He'd interrupt him mid-sentence, dismiss his suggestions, and make condescending remarks. Tom's initial reaction was to defend himself aggressively, confronting John in the heat of the moment. But every time he did, it only escalated the tension, and the problem seemed to worsen. Tom realized that by reacting in anger or frustration, he was giving John power over his emotions. This realization came during a particularly heated meeting when, instead of defending his ideas, Tom sat quietly, taking a deep breath, and chose not to react. He calmly acknowledged John's point without feeling the need to justify his own. Over the next few weeks, Tom practiced this response more intentionally, focusing on remaining composed and detached from the situation. As time passed, John began to notice Tom's calm demeanor. Without the constant pushback and conflict, John started to rethink his approach to Tom. Eventually, the two developed a more respectful working relationship, with John offering more thoughtful feedback and engaging in more constructive conversations. This story exemplifies the power of choosing your response. When faced with disrespect, instead of engaging in a back and forth of negativity, you can choose to remain composed. You can decide that their behavior will not dictate your emotional state or actions. The more you practice this, the more you realize that your peace of mind is within your control. What often happens when we react impulsively to disrespect is that we end up giving our emotional energy away. We become entangled in unnecessary drama, allowing others to control our mood and actions. But when we choose to respond thoughtfully, we hold on to our inner peace and maintain our dignity. Choosing your response is about emotional resilience. It's about not letting negativity shake your core. It's about realizing that your self-worth is not determined by how others treat you, but by how you handle those situations. By practicing this mindset, you not only protect your peace, but you also demonstrate your emotional maturity and strength. In conclusion, the most empowering thing you can do when someone disrespects you is to take a step back and choose your response. Instead of reacting impulsively or defensively, you can maintain your composure, rise above the situation, and maintain control over your emotional state. This allows you to avoid unnecessary conflict, preserve your peace, and command respect without having to engage in toxic behavior. Your response is your power. Use it wisely, and you'll find yourself more at peace and in control of your relationships. Set boundaries with compassion, not hostility. Building on the idea of choosing our response, the next powerful tool in handling people who don't respect us is learning to set clear and healthy boundaries. Often, when we feel disrespected, our immediate instinct is to react with anger or confrontation. But there's a more effective way to protect ourselves. Setting boundaries with compassion, not hostility. Setting boundaries is essential for maintaining our mental and emotional well-being. Without boundaries, we allow others to walk all over us, taking advantage of our time, energy, and kindness. However, when we establish clear limits, without being aggressive or defensive, we protect ourselves without causing further conflict. Boundaries don't have to be rigid or unfriendly. They are simply guidelines that define how we wish to be treated and what behavior we won't tolerate. Consider the story of Sarah, a kind-hearted woman in her mid-40s, who worked in a high-pressure corporate job. Her colleague, Jane, constantly interrupted her during meetings, spoke over her, and disregarded her input. Initially, Sarah tried to ignore the behavior, hoping it would stop on its own. However, over time, she started feeling frustrated, exhausted, and undervalued. She knew something had to change, but she didn't want to escalate the situation. One day, Sarah decided to address Jane's behavior in a way that would preserve her dignity and the integrity of the relationship. Instead of confronting Jane with anger or resentment, Sarah took a calm, compassionate approach. She invited Jane to have a one-on-one conversation in a neutral space and said, "I've noticed that when we're in meetings, I sometimes feel like my ideas aren't being heard. I really value your insights, and I want to make sure we both feel heard and respected in our conversations." By framing her feelings as her own experience, Sarah avoided sounding accusatory, which made the conversation feel less confrontational. Jane, caught off guard by Sarah's gentle tone and vulnerability, immediately apologized and acknowledged that she hadn't realized her behavior was having such an impact. From that point forward, Jane made a conscious effort to listen more attentively when Sarah spoke, and Sarah felt empowered to voice her thoughts more freely. This story highlights how setting boundaries with compassion can lead to positive, productive outcomes. Sarah wasn't hostile, defensive, or confrontational. She simply communicated her needs and set a boundary in a way that respected both herself and Jane. Setting boundaries doesn't mean shutting people out or becoming cold. It means protecting your peace while still being kind and understanding. Boundaries are essential in preserving your energy, your time, and your sense of self-worth. When you're faced with disrespect, a compassionate boundary can serve as a reminder that you deserve to be treated with dignity. Setting boundaries isn't just about saying no to others. It's about saying yes to your own emotional health and well-being. And doing so with kindness ensures that you don't burn bridges or create unnecessary conflict. To set boundaries with compassion, focus on clear, respectful communication. Be specific about the behavior you're addressing and express how it affects you, without blaming or shaming the other person. Setting boundaries with compassion takes practice, but once you master it, you'll find yourself more confident and at peace in your relationships. In conclusion, handling people who disrespect you doesn't require confrontation or hostility. By setting healthy, compassionate boundaries, you assert your worth and protect your peace, without escalating conflict. Boundaries are an act of self-respect, and when communicated with kindness, they help maintain harmony while ensuring that your needs are met. Choose your peace over your ego. Continuing from the idea of setting boundaries with compassion, the next crucial step in handling disrespect is choosing your peace over your ego. Our ego often demands that we defend ourselves when we feel disrespected, but in many cases, defending our pride leads us into unnecessary conflict. The Stoic approach teaches us that true strength comes from letting go of the need to be right and focusing instead on our peace of mind. Consider the story of Michael, a man in his late 50s who had always prided himself on being an expert in his field. One day, during a meeting with colleagues, a younger employee, Jake, disagreed with him in a very blunt and public way. Michael, feeling embarrassed and disrespected, immediately felt his ego flare up. He wanted to snap back with a sharp remark, to show Jake that he was wrong and to restore his position in front of the team. However, Michael paused, remembering a principle he had read about in Stoic philosophy. It's not the event that disturbs us, but our judgment of the event. Instead of immediately reacting, Michael chose to take a deep breath and reassess the situation. He realized that Jake's comment, though direct, wasn't meant to undermine him personally. It was simply a difference of opinion. The desire to defend his pride and reputation was strong, but Michael understood that retaliating would only escalate the situation and disturb his peace. So, he made the conscious decision to let it go. He responded calmly, acknowledging Jake's point with a simple, "That's an interesting perspective. Let's explore that further," which diffused the tension in the room. By choosing peace over ego, Michael saved himself from a potentially awkward and hostile confrontation. Instead of letting his pride dictate his response, he chose to remain composed and respectful, which earned him the respect of his colleagues and allowed the meeting to proceed smoothly. In the long run, Michael realized that his decision not to react out of ego preserved his emotional energy and helped him maintain a positive working environment. This story exemplifies the Stoic practice of choosing inner peace over the external chaos that our ego can create. It's easy to let our pride take over when someone disrespects us, but this only leads to unnecessary stress, anger, and sometimes regret. Stoicism teaches us that we cannot control others' actions, but we can control our reactions. When we choose peace, we avoid the emotional turbulence that comes from trying to defend ourselves at all costs. Choosing your peace over your ego doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect or that you let people walk all over you. It means you recognize that your emotional state is more important than the fleeting satisfaction of winning an argument. By letting go of the need to prove yourself right in every situation, you create space for greater emotional clarity and inner calm. This helps you respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively, and ultimately, it preserves your well-being. In relationships, work, and daily life, you will encounter moments where your ego will want to take charge. But by choosing peace, by not allowing your emotions to be controlled by the need for validation or revenge, you reclaim your personal power. You rise above the pettiness and chaos, gaining a greater sense of control over your thoughts, emotions, and actions. In conclusion, handling disrespect is often about choosing your peace over defending your ego. When we stop reacting from a place of wounded pride, we unlock the ability to respond with wisdom, clarity, and calm. Choosing peace may not always feel like the easiest path, but it is the one that leads to long-term emotional resilience and healthier relationships. Letting go of the need to be right can set you free from the burden of constant conflict and allow you to live with greater tranquility. Sparkling Heart, thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thumbs up, your support means the world to us. Dizzy, we love hearing from you, so drop a comment below and share your thoughts, opinions, or personal experiences with us. Let's keep this conversation going. Hugging Face Sparkles, if you're enjoying the content, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. There's so much more waiting for you on our channel, and we can't wait to share more wisdom with you. Glowing Star Speech Balloons, spread the love. Two Hearts, watch our other videos and discover even more powerful insights to level up your life. Let's keep growing together, because you deserve nothing less than the best. Flex Biceps, thanks for being part of our community. You rock. Rocket Sparkles.